everyone. It's Ian Nicholas for the season 2 premiere of a Beyond the Whistle podcast, joined by one of our biggest guests yet. He's the current athletic director at Syracuse University, and he spent numerous decades working for a little sports TV program you might have heard of, ESPN. It's John Wildhack. Mr. Wildhack, how are you doing today?
Ian, I'm doing well. I hope you are, and I'm happy to be with you.
Well, I am doing great, definitely to be joined by you. And I know you fielded a ton of questions about the status of college athletics during a global pandemic these last 6 months. So I don't know if we need to talk about that even more right now. Instead, I want to talk a little bit about you and how you ended up at Syracuse, back in 1980, where you graduated from the historic Newhouse School. So
Okay.
You were born and raised in Buffalo, so you didn't go too far for college. Did you know at any point during your pre-college life, was there a moment that you knew you wanted to be involved in sports or television in any way? And do you remember that moment or that year at time that you knew?
Ian, I've been a sports fan ever since I can remember as a little kid. So love sports, played sports, not a really good athlete, decent athlete, but not an elite athlete by any stretch of the imagination, but always loved sports, always followed sports, always liked to play sports. And then, when I was in high school, I got to do some really rudimentary and really, really basic, videotaping of stuff we did at school, events at high school. We did a field trip up to the Ontario Science Center.
Wow.
I remember, I think it was yesterday, they had a mock TV studio. And once I saw that, I spent the entire field trip in there. They had to come back and get me. I almost
You were hooked.
back to Buffalo from Toronto because I just saw it and I was just totally enthralled by it and fascinated by it. So that just kind of led me to really combine my passion, which is sports and television. And fortunately, I was able to make it a career.
Well, I love sports too. Wasn't great at playing football. Probably got my JV quarterback sacked a few times too many. So, I was able to combine that passion as well as sports and television. And hopefully I can have a successful career in it too. So speaking of things that you became enthralled in, I became enthralled when I visited ESPN's headquarters in Bristol. That was my moment where I was hooked. And you just told me about your moment when you were hooked. But you joined ESPN in its first year in 1980. Perfect timing right out of Syracuse. Did you know at any time during those first few years, maybe first few months, that the core people there at ESPN, including yourself, you guys were going to build something special?
No, candidly, no. Most of us were young.
Yeah.
Just out of school. We thought, hey, this is pretty cool. We all love sports. We get to work at the startup, and that's what it was. It was a startup, and we get paid.
Yeah, that helps.
By the way, very little. We got paid, wasn't a lot. But we received great experience, and we said, hey, if this thing works, fantastic. If not, maybe we can parlay this into a job at one of the networks or somewhere else, or I'd go back to grad school or something like that. But nobody could ever envision the success in the early days that ultimately ESPN came to enjoy.
Well, sometimes you have to take risks, and that was a big success. Even though it had very humble beginnings. In your first 10 years there, you were a part of numerous big productions, including producing NFL games on cable for ESPN. But in the 1990s was when you and ESPN had even more success. ESPN2 became the largest growing cable news channel, and a lot of big connections you had to keep up with, with major sports leagues to make sure that ESPN was streaming that. How big was it for you to build? I always hear about networking. But how important was it for you to build those relationships with major sports leagues to make sure that ESPN and ESPN2 was able to be a programming giant during the beginning stages?
Well, it's relationships are really important in any business, because if you're going to get deals done, you've got to have a relationship with the person you're negotiating, who's at the other side of the table. And it has to be one where you respect one another. And it doesn't mean that you're going to be best friends or whatever, that type of thing, but you need to get along to get things accomplished, which is important to both parties. So establishing those relationships is really important, because those relationships, ultimately some of them did become real personal friendships, and some that I enjoy to this day. But I think that created a path towards, towards getting deals done. And yeah, I think also is developing relationships with people. You learn about them,
Mm-hmm.
they learn about you, your values, your ethics, your morals, and um, it's an important part of any business, because it still comes down to people, regardless of the business. It comes down to.
Yes. No, I totally agree. It can't just always be you looking for something. It has to be a back and forth relationship where, you are friends a little bit and you have a personal relationship. So that's phenomenal to understand a little bit of how those deals got done and how much success you guys had. So speaking of deals somewhat getting done, you transitioned from ESPN right back to Syracuse in 2016, July 2016. You became the athletic director. You came right back to school in a sense. And, I know this year's been a crazy one, but over the first few years of being the AD at Syracuse, you've had a lot of success, a lot of winning programs, 23 conference championships, a couple national championships. Tell me about some of the special moments you've been able to have back at your alma mater over these past few years.
Well, it's fun to be back on a college campus. I've always loved to be with young people. They energize me. And
Yeah.
that's the great things about ESPN. We had so many young people, particularly in production. And their energy is contagious. Since I've been back, I'm proud of the competitive success we've had, and it's been in a variety of sports. I'm also really proud of the academic success
Yes.
our student athletes have had. Our academic performance is at an all-time high in terms of GPA, in terms of graduation rate, our APR rankings. So we take it seriously, as we want to have excellence on the competitive landscape, absolutely, but we also want to have excellence in the classroom, and our young men and young women are doing that. They deserve a lot of credit for that. And we're all competitive, and there's nothing more enjoyable than a big win for any of our teams. And Friday we beat women's volleyball. We had a doubleheader match Friday and Saturday. We hosted Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh hadn't lost a conference game in 2 years.
Wow.
And we beat them in 5 sets Friday. And I watched every point from my house, and I was screaming. The entire neighborhood heard me, because I was screaming, and I was so proud of our team. And so any win is always one that that we celebrate. And when we win, all the credit goes to that team. So that coaching staff, and we're thankful for the support of our fans.
I think it's very important that you mention how important the classroom is. A record 7 Orange teams posted perfect multi-year scores of 1,000 in 2017, 2018, the 3.0 cumulative GPA in 2019, 2020 among Orange student athletes. Sports are very important, but not everybody, is going to go to the NFL or play professionally. And I think what you're doing there at Syracuse, building in the classroom and building success post-college, it really shows in the numbers that you just mentioned. And
it's great to see the success,
yeah,
graduation that so many of our students have had in terms of job placement, and their jobs out of college and out of Syracuse, and really starting at blue chip companies in their respective businesses and industries, and and beginning to really planting the seeds for what will be successful careers. So it's always fun to see that as well.
And it always helps that the alumni network at Syracuse is among the best in the nation for getting
great alumni network. That's right.
It definitely helps. And it's great to see that foundation being built in your early stages and what will be hopefully a successful run as the AD at Syracuse. And to close with this interview, Mr. Wildhack, if you have an Orange student athlete approach you, or any young person approach you and say, I want to go into the business that you were in, I want to work on the production side, or I want to work in sports television, or I want to work in sports management, is there a few pieces of advice, very quick, words to live by that got you through those early days at that startup at ESPN, and what got the ball rolling there? What would you tell them?
Well, there's a few things. Number one is, if you can make your passion your profession, you're really lucky if you can do that. And I've been incredibly blessed, because I've been able to do that my entire career. Secondly is you've got to, you got to work hard. It's not easy.
No.
You have to work hard. You got to be collaborative. You're competing with your coworkers because everybody wants to grow their career, but you've got to do it in a way that's collaborative. And I think another thing that some people do, not only those early in their career, but even those who've had, in middle stages of their career, some people focus too much on the next job, Ian, is they forget that you've got to do great in your current job. Because if you're a star at what you do in your current job, your manager is going to be your strongest advocate to get you promoted, to give you that opportunity, to create that next opportunity for you. So, I mean, you've got to be great in what you do today. And if you do that and you do it the right way, that will lead to opportunities in the future for you to grow your career.
I think that's really well put. You always have to think of the future, but you can't get there without a strong foundation, without building your skills and giving 100% in what you're doing. And, I'm so happy that I've been able to find what I love. It seems like you've definitely found what you love, and one of them being Syracuse University. I can't wait to get to visit, hopefully sometime. And really, I'd love to go up there to New York. It's a fantastic institution. And I wish you nothing but success during these crazy times and, working out the schedules with fall sports. And in the future, it's unprecedented. But, Syracuse is happy that they have you, leading that charge. And I just want to thank you for joining me today.
Ian, my pleasure. Thanks. I wish you all the best in your senior year at New Canaan.
Yes.
Congratulations on the second season of your podcast. I hope it goes great for you, and we'd love to have you. We'd love to have you at Syracuse for 4 years.
I'd love to be there. Well, this was the first episode of season 2 of the Beyond the Whistle podcast, joined by Syracuse Athletic Director John Wildhack, and we will see you next time.